I'm Vinny Vinyl, and tonight we turn the dial to the hour when radio stopped performing at people and started listening to them. The all-request hour, the dedication line, the moment when a city, a campus, a neighborhood found a way to talk back. It wasn't about the song. It was about the voice behind the request. Nervous, hopeful, heartbroken, grateful. Late at night, under dim lamps and humming consoles, you could feel the whole city leaning toward the phone. Let's pick up the line. The all-request format traces back to the 1950s, when AM stations invited listeners to call the record hop. Transmitters were strong. Phones were primitive, but the idea was electric. Radio didn't just broadcast to communities, it invited community in. By the 1960s, dedicating a song became ritual. Kids called from rotary phones in kitchens. Factory workers called during breaks. Soldiers called from payphones overseas. The phrase, "This one goes out too," became a cultural handshake, a short message that made big feelings portable. And by the 1970s, the request hour was a nightly event. It lived where the playlist loosened, and humanity filled the cracks. When you're the one behind the mic, you recognize every kind of silence in a caller's breath. Some callers lead with a laugh, others with a sigh. Some carry joy like a backpack stuffed too full. Others carry grief so heavy, the cord feels warm. You take a name, you take a song, but really, you're taking a moment someone didn't want to face alone. The all-request hour wasn't frantic, it was gentle. A place where a DJ became a companion, and a turntable became a kind of empathy machine. Picture it, a desk phone taped to a console leg so it wouldn't wander. 2 lines, maybe 3, blinking like patient fireflies. A call screener, if you had one. Scribbling notes on index cards. Names spelled phonetically. Song titles half-guessed. Play track 2. No, not that one. You learned to translate hope. Most callers didn't want airtime. They wanted acknowledgement. And when you screen calls yourself, one ear on the phone, one on the Q channel, you lived in 2 worlds at once. Behind every smooth request hour was a dance. Fade this down, cue that up, write down the next name, keep the clock honest. Make it sound like a conversation instead of a scramble. When it worked, it felt effortless. When it didn't, you learned humility faster than any format training could teach. Requests weren't about interactivity, not in the modern, metric-driven sense. They were about belonging. Sociologists note that listeners form parasocial bonds with evening hosts, not because the host talks more, but because the host listens more. A caller hearing their dedication read aloud experienced a tiny public ceremony, a ritual of recognition, a moment that said, "You exist, your feelings matter, someone hears you." That is not nostalgia, that is psychology, and it is timeless. Callers had a sound, not the audio quality, the spirit. There was the whisperer, calling from a dorm where roommates slept, the pacer, breathless from pacing around a kitchen, the nervous laugher, trying to confess a crush through giggles. And the steady ones, the night shift workers, the cab drivers, the nurses on break, calling not for romance, but for company. Every call was a short story. Some were poems, some were puzzles, a few were storms, but all were human. There is an art to reading a dedication. Too much flourish, you steal the spotlight. Too little, you flatten the feeling. You learn to balance tone with tenderness. You'd read, "This one's for her. She'll know." Or, "From the night shift to the day shift, keep the lights warm." Or, "To the person who thinks they're unloved, someone disagrees." These weren't performances. They were offerings, and the room felt bigger afterward. Request hours required unusual technical skill. A DJ had to manage phone impedance issues, line noise, timing discipline, smoother than usual segues, the emotional weight of the hour, delay lines protected from surprise words. Producers monitored pacing, engineers cleaned up hum in real time, and board ops learned to match a caller's energy without ever letting the clock slip. It was choreography with cables. Cities breathe differently after sunset. Their noise softens, their people soften too. The all-request hour lived in that softness, a place where strangers became a temporary chorus. You could tell which neighborhoods were still awake by the voices on the line. You could hear factory shifts turning over, campuses pulsing with insomnia, and lonely hearts trying to turn feelings into songs. Radio felt less like a medium and more like a meeting. By the 1980s, request hours became a branding tool. Stations built full shows around dedications, love lines, late-night talk hybrids, programs that blended music and honest conversation. But even as consultants tightened playlists, listeners still carved out pockets of freedom through the request line, and the hosts who embraced it became unforgettable. Imagine a host with 15 requests waiting, names scribbled on a legal pad, songs queued on carts or vinyl, callers holding for their moment. You grab a song that feels right for the hour, not just for the request. You blend stories into a shape the city can carry, and for a moment, you feel like the conductor of an unseen orchestra. You're not picking music, you're building evening mood.
Engineers heard the request hour differently. We didn't listen for the stories. We listened for the hum behind the voices, a loose wire, a tired transformer, a call from farther out than the signal expected. Those little imperfections, that's where the humanity lived. Some nights the phone line carried more truth than the microphone did, and our job was simple: keep the line clean enough so the feeling could come through.
Today, we tap screens instead of dialing phones. Songs arrive instantly. Algorithms predict taste. But they can't predict longing. They can't measure dedication. They can't replace the sound of someone saying your name into a dark room. The request hour taught us that connection is not a transaction. It's a conversation. I'm Vinny Vinyl, and this hour will always be my favorite. The hour when radio stopped being a stage and started being a porch light. Next time on Airwaves, we'll explore the overnight truckers network and how a nation of night drivers built a family on the AM band. Same signal, new legend. Retrowaves, Legends of the Airwaves is a Journeywise Studios production.